All right, these are my ported LT1 heads. I'm not sure that you'd call this a max effort deal, but I did put a hell of a lot of work into these. We did bigger valve seats, just complete and total rework of the ports, did a lot of work to them. But so what's been done to them? Well, first thing you'll notice is that I now have a 208 160 valve combination in them. You have to put seats in them to put the bigger valves in. The biggest valve these things will take stock is a 2-inch valve, and that's pretty much using up all your seat. So I guess just starting from the top, it's got a 208 intake. This got a 2.040 bowl. I didn't want to go any bigger than that. I just got to where I was kind of running out of material to work with. So I figured I'd stop right there before I started making holes where I didn't want to make them at. So the throat on this is 90%, or it's actually 90.1. It's 1.875. I did try a 2055 in these and I got really similar results, but I ended up gaining, as far as peak flow, I ended up gaining about 12 CFM going to the 208 intake valve over the 2055. Your mileage may vary. I will say that the throats on my 2055 that I did, they were a little bit big. They were 91% throats. These are 90%. And I think if I did a 2055 with a 90% throat, I might see better results. Maybe not better peak flow, but probably stronger results at 400 and 400 up, through 600. But on the exhaust side, the exhaust throat is pretty small. It's 88%, 1.408. And then my bowl is 1.468, I believe. No, 1.44, so that's 89%. But you'll notice there's a lot of bias. It's biased to this side. So on a small block Chevy, in which I learned this from another head porter, but on a small block Chevy, you want your bias to that side, whichever way your chamber is. Like for instance, okay, this one's biased to the left side. This one on the next chamber, its neighbor, is biased to the right side. But I did test that on the bench, and it does make a significant difference just with port bias. So you don't have to have a huge exhaust port, and these actually flow really good for what they are. Looking down the intake runner, these runners measured as far as volume, they're 208 cc's now. If you've ever seen a stock LT1, they're very, very small. They're probably 168 cc's. I didn't cc one. I've got another set here that I could, but don't really want to. But raise this port, or I raised the roof of it 105 thousandths. I did that on all of them, obviously. Then if you notice, I did down there you can see where I broke through on the common wall. Those will have brass sleeves in them, and I just want to just to put this out there, I do have a brass sleeve that I use to flow test these with. It is right here, and it will slide in there. I better show you because you'll think I'm full of shit. So I put that in there, flow test it with. These go way over 300 without that in there. I just want to point that out because it does make a difference. I don't know as far as like, I know Chad Spire does a bunch of them, and I'm not going to question his numbers. He's a fucking stud, but he does a lot of them, and he leaves that hole open and just puts the stud in there. I was going to try that, but I didn't really have any way to replicate what it was going to be like on a real engine, so I just used the brass sleeves. And I'll get my sleeves in there obviously before I put these on. So this thing has 2.15. ended up being my minimum cross section area, so I had to dig down there quite a bit. I raised my roof 100 thousandths, so I got 100 thousandths there, but I also had to dig down there. And then 1.170, I think, wide, 1.170, 1.180, and which is about as much as you can get right there safely without starting to bubble it. But that's it. That's the back side of it. As far as the exhaust side, nothing special here. I use the stock MLS gasket. Do this on all of them just to match that. Did a port match on the roof of it. Did not touch the floor. I shined it up, and then I laid the short turn back. As you can see, I got a smaller radius over there, a bigger radius over there. So up here on the top, looking down through the port, you can see the short turn has been drastically reworked. I made it really wide. That's one of the keys to it. You got to make it wide, and then it's been laid way back to kind of give it a smooth transition in. But the short turn seems to work pretty good. There's probably more I could get in there, I believe, if I was to do some work right there. I could probably see a solid 300 with these, but where my velocities are at right now, this is going on a street motor. It's not an all-out race deal. My velocities are pretty much perfect for what I'm wanting to do with it. So this is as far as I'm going to go with it. I do think, though, if a person was to widen that, to take that all the way out to the wall, you're probably going to see 300 with a 208 valve. So speaking to the chambers, I just want to cut to the chase. You don't have to do anything to make a big valve work in these chambers. These chambers are great from the factory. These heads have been milled 25 thousandths. I didn't really intend on that, but that's where they ended up. I did take them to the machine shop to have them milled. That's where they ended up. So my chambers ended up at 55 cc's, and these valves have been sunk. I sunk my intake and exhaust both way down in there to try to get a better valve job to get the air to roll out of them. So I mean, if I hadn't had them milled, they might be closer to 50. But chambers are great. These are probably some of Chevrolet's best chambers that they've ever designed, and they just flat out work. So now you want to know what they flow. I want to be clear about this. This is a crappy Speedmaster intake valve. It's 208 valve. You know, I talked about putting 2055s in here. I had 2055 Ferrea valves. I bought those for this. I had these 208 sitting around. I decided to go 208, so I'll end up putting a different valve in this. I'm not sure. I would imagine it's probably going to end up being Urson valves in here. The competition series, those I think are the best, absolutely the best you can get at that price point. So flow numbers: 100, they went 69. 200, 118 CFM. 300, 180. I mean, it just is what it is. I don't know. I mess with it, and that's as good as I could get it. 400, they went 229. 500, they went 260. 600, it's 290, and 700 was 285, or sorry, 286. And I do have a collection of videos that I made on whenever I was porting these. I don't know if I'll post it or not. I mean, if you want to see it, just put it down in the comments and I'll throw it together. It's kind of a bunch of jumbled up clips that I used, and I changed course. You know, I was going to put a 2-inch intake valve in these, and then I changed course about halfway through and decided to go to the 208 after I just kept on grinding and grinding and grinding. But if you want to see that, holler, and I'll slap it together. It's not going to be the greatest thing you've ever seen, but I mean, it will show what kind of work goes into this, and you know what your critical areas are and how to do it. So I guess that's all I've got for now. You guys have a great Easter Sunday.